folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And in this video we're going to install a roll cage and some sport seats into a classic Mini. There are many different reasons why we want to fit a roll cage and new racing seats, and it's all about making your Mini fit for purpose and fit for use, and that's entirely up to you to decide. And just maybe you want to make your Mini look pretty sporty, and then you just want to have a roll bar or a roll cage and seats for its looks, or maybe you really want to have the functionality for it because you want to go on a racetrack. And in this video we're going to talk about seats and roll cages. So two popular items to either pimp up the car, make it look good, or to increase safety. Seats and roll cages, they come in all kind of price ranges, and there is a major difference between all of them. Now, which one is fit for you all depends, of course, on what you want to use it for. And in my personal opinion, it should be fit for purpose and fit for use. Roll cages come in all kind of forms and shapes. And depending on your local legislation or the regulation of your MOT, you may be able to fit a full cage, half a cage, or maybe just the rear part. Like in my case, I can only fit the rear part because that's what the law says. I don't get it, but it is what it is. You also need to check out what the fixing method should be for the cage, to use bolt-on cages and not weld-on. You will have to specify exactly what you want. Now, they will come in different price ranges. They will range from, let's say, $100 or euros to about 400 and upwards. And that all depends on the build of the quality. And if your intent is to enhance the looks of your car and really have no functionality for the safety device, then you can go for very cheap ones. But keep in mind that a cheap roll cage is probably not going to fit too well. You're going to have fitting issues. You may not have all the parts to fit it, and you may have to make some modifications. Painting may not be that nice, and the welding may not look all that nice. But of course, if your intent is to drive rallies, then you're going to have to go for a certified roll cage, and that will bring you up in the price range. You're going to have good quality, good steel, and you will have probably a nice powder coating on it. So that is what makes the difference between a cheap one and an expensive one. If your intent is to do rallies or races, then make sure that you have a roll cage which is FIA approved. And you should find a sticker on the cage. If it doesn't have one, forget it. Then it's not a real quality certified cage. There's always a number on it, and you can look these numbers up. So if you finally decided to get your roll cage or a part of a roll cage, think about the back seat. So if you still have a back seat, then you don't want to have this crossbar welded on to the cage itself. Then you want to have one which is removable. If you don't have no rear seat or you removed it, then this is fine to have. But again, check your local MOT regulations because they may be a little bit picky on that. So if you want to do a proper investment, go for a roll cage that allows you to add on extensions. So this is the rear part, but you see this bracket here? That allows me to build on with additional parts for the same roll cage to go forward into the vehicle. So these are options that would be nice to have on your roll bar if you ever intend to extend it. If you buy the better quality roll cage, it's going to come with attachments, so parts that you're going to need to install the cage. It's going to have all the bolts and nuts and the washers, besides mounting panels, and they will be shaped to the right form and drilled to the right dimensions. You have it for the rear wheel arches, and then you also have it for the bottom side of the roll cage, actually formed to fit properly onto your Mini. And then you have the supporting plates on the other side, which are going at the outside of the car. So these things are, I think, very important that you have those. The cheaper stuff has any of that, or it's very weak and very thin stuff. So enough talk, now it's time to start and install it. So to fit the roll cage, we first will have to remove all the seats, the front and the back seat. Make sure that the visor is removed and that the seat belts are removed, because otherwise it's going to be very tough to get it in. So the next thing to do is to remove the seat belt rollers, and there's a bolt here, so everything is out of the way. And we remove also the top side of the seat belt. Have enough space. Fitting a roll cage into a Mini will take you about 2 to 3 hours, and it's not very complicated, but it took me 2 trials to get it straight in, because the first time I moved it in I had no success. How the hell do I get it over these sides? So I got stuck, I had to remove it again and then find another way of doing it. So what I'm going to show you or tell you is the best way that I found to put it in. So first of all, you need to remove the seat belts on the pillars and on the bottom, and then you also need to remove the seats, of course, and the rear seat and the rear view mirror, so you have a lot of space to work. Then you take the rear cage, and just as it's fitted, and you fit it through the doors just like you see it here, so the high part facing towards the steering wheel. We need to get inside the car now and try to fit all this in. Alright. Which is really a tight fit. Then you put the spanner up on the front legs and on the rear legs, and you tie those together. So it is a very tight fit, so you might need to resolve this a bit by spanners. So if you have some bands, you might want to use those to tighten these legs a bit together. Enough that it fits inside the cabin, so it has to fit in between the inner sills and in between the pillars, because otherwise you can't move things, right? And I need to tighten that up a bit more because I can't get it past the pillar. All right. So then you take that whole roll bar and you move it that way, horizontal. So it becomes really like this, and it's going to rest on the top of the steering wheel or just behind it with this top bar. So it comes down like this. And then you lift it up even more so that these rear legs are going into the top of those pockets, left and right. And then you need to loosen up the tensioning belt, because these legs have to extend a bit so that the pads that you have on the bottom fit inside the pockets here. Do that and then push that further down. And then push the whole thing up until the rear legs are fitted towards the rear wheel arches. Now for me that was the best way to do it, and that went quite smoothly. But you're going to need those tensioning belts, at least 2. And to me that's the best way to do it. I have done it in a different way and I got stuck a couple of times. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I had enjoyment on fitting this. When everything is aligned, then we will drill the holes, and I'm going to measure the bolt, and I think this is perfectly with a 10 mil. So let's drill that. All right, that's good. And now I'm going to put the bolt in there, just to hold it in place. So now it's just a matter of drilling the other holes and then removing the bolt again, and then putting the supporting or the enforcement panel underneath. And the same panel goes at the inner side of the wheel arch, and then we put the bolts through with the washers, and then we are done. So we will do this on the left and on the right side, and then we will work on the front pillars. So I'm not going to tighten it up all the way. I will put the bolts in the back just to hold it in place, but not real tight, because we still have to do the other side. So to get the second leg into the right position, I need to move it a bit more to the right. So it's about an inch or so. So I'm going to use a piece of wood to force it into position. And let me put a cloth on there. That's a small car to work in. So I can just force it in a bit and making sure that it fits as it should. And I think this is about the same position as what they did on the other side, so that is good. All right, so let's mark the holes and drill it. We've bolted down the roll bar onto the wheel arches, but now we need to bolt them down inside this cover here, and that's very hard to get into. You can't get into it with a drill, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my template from underneath the car. But first of all, I'm going to drill 2 pilot holes on the outer side there. So there I can actually get my drill in, you see. And then I will move this stuff underneath the car, and position it and then drill from underneath the remaining holes. So that will be the best approach, because otherwise you can't drill in the front here. Alright, so I got one hole. Alright, so I have my 2 pilot holes, so let me drill those out. So now with everything aligned, I can now drill the hole from the bottom side. Okay, and that's it. So now I can put the bolt up. The seats that I have in this car are very good and comfortable seats. However, I don't think they fit in the overall environment of this car. I like to have it a bit more sporty. Although the Mini is pretty rough on the road, it has a short wheelbase, so it's a bit of a bumpy car, and that's why good seats are important. And these are really good, comfortable seats. They take a lot of the shocking and the vibrations. If you put sport seats in, or classic sport seats, it's going to be a bit different. It's going to be far more hard. So that's something to keep in mind before you even decide to remove the old seats. Now the good thing is, I can always put the old seats back. So let's have a look on a classic sport seat from Cobra. Seats are no different than roll cages, and it all depends on the purpose of the car. If you're going to go to a racetrack, then you have to have seats that are FIA approved. And that's very strict, and these seats are very expensive. They have all kind of regulations that deal with that, with the strength, with the tissue, the fumes, the burning, you know, all that kind of stuff. So you really have to have expensive seats that protect you all over, the head, the neck, you know, the whole body. It's expensive. But if you're going to drive the car on the road and you do regularity rallies, then of course you do not require that kind of a seat. And in fact, the MOT may not allow you to fit that kind of seats. They may not allow you to fit seats that are bolted down to the floor of the car. So you may have to have seats that are be able to fold up. So that's why I decided to go for a seat which is kind of a classic Cobra seat. It was one of the first Cobra models, I believe. So if you buy seats, try to buy a good brand. Cobra is a pretty good brand, and I'm not making a commercial for that one, but you have guarantees and all that. And the quality is really nice, I have to admit. Which is pretty nice. I mean, it has sky leather imitation on the sides. The sides are pretty strong, so it provides you a good seating comfort. The cushion is good, and they have some corduroy here in the middle. So black corduroy. So I think this is going to fit just nice, because I am not going to go on a racetrack with this car. I don't need to have this FIA approval for my seat. Nevertheless, I wanted to have some quality seat as well, and this is really good quality. There are a lot of fake Cobra seats on the market, so if you buy one, make sure that at least that you have the hologram on the warranty card and a serial number on it, and hopefully you can see the movement of the hologram. So that's important. That's how you can recognize that you actually have a genuine Cobra seat. And you will have to buy a supporting frame for the Cobra seats that fits into your car, into your fixings on your floor pan. You want to have it adjustable, and here is the adjustment. And you also want to have them able to flip up, so you can flip up the seats, because your MOT may require that. And that's why this one is having this kind of a latch which will lock in the seat. It may rattle a bit apparently, but you can fix that once it's installed. All right. There's bolts with it to bolt down the seat, so you know it's complete. So buy good quality stuff. That's so important for your seats. So now we're going to fit the seats, and for the seats you will need a subframe, and this is the subframe that goes underneath the seats like so, and you need to bolt it onto the seats. Buy the good quality subframes, because you have a locking mechanism on this one, so I can tilt the seat upward or backward. Now before you can actually bolt it down onto the seat, you will have to open up some holes here, because the sky or whatever you want to call this semi-leather looking material is covering up the holes. So I already cut one hole there. So what you need to do first now is to cut some holes so you can put the bolts through. So let's do that first. So if you push your finger on it, and you can feel where the holes are, and that's where I have one hole. So with a small cutter, I'm just going to cut it out. It doesn't have to be really precise, because the bar that goes on top of it is fairly big. So no, that should be more than good enough. So do that on the 4 corners, and then we can fit the subframe. I have the holes cut, so now I can actually mount the subframe onto it. You see these holes here? That's where you have to put the bolt through, but you can't place it like this. You have to do it from the back first. Place it in, and then use an Allen key to get it into place. Just tighten it loosely. Alright, and now we're going to fit the other bolts. Do the same thing, fit it loosely. If things are made of good quality, then this goes very smoothly. Cheaper seats, you always have an issue. The holes don't match, there's always something. This is good stuff. Now we're going to lock them down, and then we can actually install the seat. So with this type of seats, there's no difference between left and right hand side. However, the subframe underneath is different. This one is, as it says, the right hand side, and you also need to have a left hand side for the other seat, and that's because of the locking mechanism that you have on the bottom. And you have some pretty nice bolts in here, so let's open it up and get these bolts out. Alright, so let's clean it up first a bit. I think this will be good enough now to fit the seats. I'm going to start on the right hand side, and we're going to bolt down the seat to the front attachments here, and then here I have the same thing here. This is the locking bar where the seat will lock into, so you actually can still lift it upwards if you have to get to the back. Now in this case it's not necessary, but for the MOT I need to have this. That's it in the front, so that should be about it. One of the issues with these seats is that you can't adjust the angle. So you could do a couple of things. You can move it a bit more deeper down in the front. There's a couple of holes on the attachments, but you could also put something in the back so it's more tilting up like this, see? So let's see. I think I'm going to fit it on the high stand for now. So first of all, we're going to bolt it down, and then we'll adjust the back side of the seat. Okay. Now, you see that this seat is still flipping up and down. So if you're going to drive this car and there's no passenger with you, this is going to be very annoying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit something underneath the chair so that it actually will be more flush and it won't be doing this. And in fact, it will even raise the seat a bit as well. So that's good. So I'm going to measure the gap that I have there, and then I'm going to make a little piece of wood that I will glue towards the bottom side of the seat. And here we have, and this is the piece of wood that I'm going to use. I give it a bit of black paint, and then I coated it with some special tape, which is kind of rough. And this is the tape that I'm using for that. And that gives it this pretty nice look. And this we're going to glue underneath the seat. And that's why I did not coat this part, because that's where the glue will go on towards the metal part of the seat. And that's a small adjustment, easy to do. This kind of tape you can get in safety stores. It's typically used for anti-slip purposes, but I like to use it on cars because it looks quite good actually. So here it is, all done. Might have to trim the edges a bit. All right, that looks clean. So now I've got 2 of them, and now that can go onto the seats. So this is the piece of wood that we're gonna glue onto the lower part of the seat frame. That will give us sufficient lift so that this mechanism here will actually lock in place properly and it's not going to rattle. So as you can see, you always need to do a little bit of additional work. Now I'm going to put some double-sided tape on this, very strong double-sided tape. There we go. And just push it down after we glued it on there with the double-sided tape, and it will never get loose. See that? So here is that piece of wood that we glued on, and now we can just lower that and put it all in place. And now this is solid and doesn't rattle anymore. That feels quite good. In fact, I can hear a bit of noise. Yeah, that's because I need to bolt it down a bit more in the front. I haven't bolted it all the way down. But this feels quite good. This sits nice and comfortable, high enough. The pedals will be right, the steering wheel will be right. And of course, you can still move this seat back and forth because they are adjustable in the length. So that's good. All right, that's done. So now let me do the driver's seat, and then we are done with it. We're almost at the end of this video, and I think the Mini now looks really a lot better with the new seats and the roll bar. It really goes much better together. And in the next video we're going to work on the tuning of the carburetor on this Mini, and for that I need to set up a few things because I'm going to try to do it on an improvised road trip, but actually in the garage. So I hope to see you again in my next video, and by all means make your comments, and I really hope that this short video on the roll cage has helped you if you're going to fit one, because they can be really hard to get in. Thank you for viewing. Bye bye.